Are you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub-2ers, my name is William Tingle of sub2deals.com. I would like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub 2 Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Occasionally, we'll cover other real estate topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Today is another episode in our Real Investor series, where we feature real investors sharing real stories and real deals. These guys are investors doing deals all across the country. There are no boot camps or courses to sell you, just real tips and strategies and the things that are working today in their businesses, in their markets, and they'll share them all with you. These things can work for you too, so pay attention and take notes. My guest today is Jessica Juderman Van Brunt. Jessica is a real estate investor in Dallas, Texas. She's been investing for over 3 years and has recently gone full-time, as she's been full-time investing for the last 6 months or so. She specializes in subject to investing, which I think is great because that's what I do too. Jessica, welcome to the Sub 2 Deal Show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and very impressed that you said my name right. Good job. It is a long last name, so good job.
I'm kind of impressed with myself too. I can be a little slow at times. Well,
it's a lot. It's a heavy name.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, I'm so excited to have you here. I've had the pleasure of working with you in your real estate investing training for the last several months and seeing you, go from part-time to full-time. It's just been really exciting to see. I mean, you've done a great job in a short time.
Thank you. I mean, I fell in love with subject to. I've been with a background of other things in the investment space, but once I just knew there was a different way to do things. And once I finally got my hands on it and figured it out, I have no reason to go do anything else. It's the perfect way to pick up property, in my opinion, from my experience of what I've been doing.
Isn't it? I mean, just to know that you can go out and literally buy as many houses as you want without ever talking to anybody at a bank. That is just, it's so much freedom it gives you. You don't have to worry about credit lines and how your credit is. I mean, how much you've got in loans out there and that sort of thing. When I got started, that was the real thing I was interested in was cash flow. And after a certain number of loans, the bank cuts you off and they really limit what you can make. But when you can go out and buy as many houses as you want, it really changes things.
Well, and I've been there. I've sat in the bank chair before, and I have a great relationship with my bank. It took me a while to find one that understood investments, but I've been there before, sitting in the chair, like that sweaty palm feeling, are they going to approve it or not? And, I've lost deals before because the bank is so conservative. They didn't see the value. They didn't see the cash flow. And I just didn't want to be in that position anymore. I didn't want to finally find a deal, which is, very competitive here in Dallas, and not have all the tools that I needed to be able to pick up property. And honestly, my personality is I really enjoy helping people. And I feel like this is one of those times where it's just really a win-win-win-win for everyone.
Certainly is. Well, I know that you love Sub 2 as much as I do, and we could probably talk about the benefits and how great it is all day long. But today's show's about you. So tell us a little bit about your background, what you did before real estate, where you're from, about your family. Just tell us all about you, Jessica.
Yeah, well, I'm a Louisiana girl. My family is still there. I have family in the Alexandria area and down in Laplace by New Orleans, and so Cajun through and through. And my dad actually had a job. He had an IT job growing up, so we moved a lot. So even though I'm from Louisiana, I have a lot of worldly experience thanks to his job. I look back now with thankfulness, but moving every year or 2 years, I was a cranky teenager for sure. But we moved to Boston. We moved a couple places in Louisiana, and we also moved to Switzerland for a couple years, where I really got a higher level of education, spoke multiple languages. Really, I think it built the character inside of me about being able to pick up and move quickly, how to handle struggles, how to be in a place where you may or may not be understood, and how to deal with that. And then we got transferred to Texas. And so my plan after high school, I graduated when I was 17. I graduated a little over a year and a half early. I was going to backpack the world. I was ready to go back to Europe. I loved it so much. Went to a high school graduation party my friend drugged me to, and I met my husband. So that was 20 years ago in April. And so here we are. So I'm Texan now. That's what they say. Once you marry a Texan, you are a Texan. So I'm here to stay, it looks like.
Well, that is certainly an interesting background. I know traveling that much and everything, you would think with that kind of background, I mean, you would have been open to doing a lot of things, but with that, what got you interested in real estate?
So it was really my family. We grew up really not having a whole lot of money, very middle class on a good paycheck, paycheck to paycheck. And my parents wanted me to live in a school district that they often couldn't afford, especially living in Louisiana. It's not common for you to go to a public school. You go to a private school. And the same when we lived in Boston, you went to a girls' Catholic school. So my family just couldn't afford that on the budget that they had. When we moved a lot, it was really hard for my mom to also be dual income because we were picking up and moving all the time. So what I watched in my parents was they would find distressed situations. Like, I know it now, but I didn't know it when I was younger. They were always moving into like these really nice neighborhoods. And we just kind of had the house that no one came to for several months. And I never understood it growing up. But as I got older and saw the perspective, it was my parents were, renting or buying from someone who needed the house to be fixed up. And so my parents would negotiate that deal. And so they were able to live in a place, in a neighborhood that others really just, we couldn't have afforded to if the house was already fixed up. And then while we were there, my mom and I would like literally work on the house and fix things and make updates. And as my dad got paid, we would do a little bit more. And then when it was time to move, we actually got to make money on it. And we kind of just repeated and repeated. And then I watched my parents one time do an owner finance. And it's really funny now looking back, because I wish my parents would have taught me what they knew. What they thought was just getting by actually is the strategy that I use to feed my family now. And like, it's my business. So I tell my parents all the time, why didn't you tell me this? So it's really funny to see kind of the full circle. But my parents did an owner finance deal. It was one of the times when we were moving really quickly overnight. We had like 2 weeks, my mom and I, to pack the house. Someone moved in, they didn't have the credit to buy. And he said, hey, could we owner finance this from you? My dad is like super conservative, so conservative. My dad was like, absolutely not. Everything that could go wrong in his mind, he had a laundry list of things. And my mom has always just been very creative in her strategy and thinking. She was a single mom for a long time. So she just has that extra grit in her DNA. And so she made the deal work. And it is really what changed the trajectory of our next place that we moved. The guy ended up paying it off in 5 years. He did a refinance. And so it's really cool now that I'm doing this to be able to sit down with my parents and like, oh yeah, we've been doing that for years. Really, mom and dad, really? Like, I could have been ahead of the bell curve here. But so that's how I got into it, really just not knowing much different. And then my husband and I used the same strategy. We couldn't afford to live where our friends lived or live where we wanted to live. We're both entrepreneurs, had 1099s. And so we did the same thing. We house hacked. And it was like the best blessing. Our friends would come over and be like, how are you guys affording to live here? And we're like, we really don't know, but it's probably because it has shag carpet. You know what I mean? And so, so that's how we got into it. And it's just been a step by step and really just falling in love with the space more and more, the more I learn. I mean, there's so much to learn. So that's kind of where I got started.
Wow. That's an amazing story. So your parents were actually real estate investors, but it sounds like they sort of didn't know that's what they were doing in a way.
They had no idea. And here's the thing, if my dad wasn't as conservative as he is, I think they probably could have made more money, because he was just so he was a CPA, accountant, IT guy. Like, he was just very analytical, and he was just a zero risk kind of guy, which, you know, I'm thankful for, because we always had food on the table because of that personality. But also saw a lot of missed opportunities, which really makes me evaluate our deals on both sides, like the what ifs, and then the what if it does go right and what if it doesn't go right.
Right. You know, that's the way I've been about things always. It's like, no, I'm not afraid to take risk. It just needs to be a very calculated risk. You need to know exactly what you're doing, and what the, you know, if it goes bad, what's the worst that can happen? And if it works out well, then, you know, what's the upside? So as long as you evaluate those things, how risky is it really, if you're aware?
Yeah, and I'll say, just from working with you, I think you are personally a lot better at that. Like, I think that's confidence of just doing this time after time. I know you and I have had calls before where I'm just nervous and I'm sweating. And then I've also talked to people in our group where they call me now and ask for advice. And I'm like, you totally have got this. Just trust yourself, trust the process. And so, but it's hard at first, because sometimes even the slightest risk when you're doing something new, it is a huge risk, because you don't know how to handle that risk should something happen.
Right.
So yeah, you're definitely better at it than us. So bigger goals.
Well, you know, when you've done it for 20 years, I mean, you'll develop a little better feel for, you know, for what's going on. I mean, that's all it is. It's just what you said. When you first start doing something, you know, it's really scary. But after you've done it for, you know, a few hundred times, you know, it's a little bit less scary. So,
right. Right. Definitely.
But that's why it's important for someone to have a person they can go to. And whether that's just another investor with more experience or a coach, you need someone that you can call. And I remember some of those calls you and I had. You know, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? And I know that now you just do those things. I know one of the last conversations I had with you on a deal was, you know, you were just telling me, you know what, I'm just going to do this, or I'm just going to do that. It was such a difference in just a few months in how you handle situations that pop up.
Right. And I think, you know, I've learned a lot through this process, and, you know, we can talk about it a little bit more too, but I just, the things that I was nervous about haven't happened. It was the things that I didn't think through or didn't know to think through. But just having a team is really, really important, because my team is the one that has carried me through those things that I would have just never known. Like, they would never fell in my what if category, because I am still new and I am still learning, and every deal is different. But I couldn't agree with you more. Having I mean, to me, you're not personally, you're my coach and you're my mentor, and that has changed everything, because there's times where I could just pick up the phone and say, I'm not crazy, right? Like, this deal isn't too good to be true, right? Like, and you're just calm, like, yo, you're right. That's what I'm teaching you, you know? And so that is helpful to have that sphere of influence when the rest of the world is telling you, you can't do it, it's illegal, that's a scam, right? So I think it is important to have a group that gets you, knows you, and believes in what you're doing.
Yep, I agree. So I know earlier when I was introducing you, you've actually been investing for about 3 years. You guys got started when?
Well, I mean, technically, I think it's been about 3 years, but we did our first house hack over 10 years ago. I don't consider it investing. We just, exactly what I explained earlier, we lived in a house. We rented a house we really couldn't afford the neighborhood in, with an exchange of fixing it so that when we moved out, they could sell it and make a profit, and we got less rent. And then our next house that we did the same thing was over 5 years ago. Wait, I'm sorry, it was over 6 years ago now. It was the first house we ever bought, and the house we bought was built in 1899. It was a historic house, and I pretty much restored that whole house by myself while my husband was gone at work. And so we house hacked that and made a lot of great money as well on that one. But at the time, I wasn't investing. I was really just, if you think about it, I was just a copy and paste of my parents. Like, I was just making ends meet. I wanted a better life for us. We found a place, we fixed it up on our own. and then we sold it and made a profit. And that's really how our investment business has grown, because I didn't know about sub-2 deals before. So I was having to get, 20% down to go to the bank. So I was constantly like trying to find that 20% or self-investing for deals. So that's how I think, maybe, I guess if you look back on it, organically about 10 years, but really as a business, moving multiple properties a year, it's been really about 3 years. We're going into 4 this year.
Now, you mentioned you guys in your first house, and you did most of the work. Did you actually do the work, or did you contract that? Are you that handy, Jessica? I didn't know that.
I actually did the work 100%. My grandfather was a union electrician, so he would come over and do the electrical work, or my dad would help me. I did the plumbing. I sanded floors. I exposed shiplaps. I built full kitchens. I made all the lights in the houses, like everything. I did it all pretty much on my own. Yep.
I tell you, I never would have imagined Jessica pulling wires in a 100-year-old house and sanding floors. But
oh
good for you. So I'm guessing these days you don't do the work yourself. So when you have somebody come over and they're talking smack, you know if they know what they're talking about or not.
Oh yeah, that doesn't work for me. Or if they do crappy work, or if it's half finished, or they want more money, or their bids are too high, my tolerance is 0 for that. One, because I just think in the industry we're in right now, it's the industry everyone wants to be in, and it's quickly moving. But I have 0 tolerance for bad work, and also for overcharging. So yeah, I'll nip it real quick and be like, okay, I'll just do it myself.
Great.
No problem. If you're not going to finish it, I'll finish it. And they're like, oh, you don't know what's involved. I'm like, actually I do. You can go ahead and go.
Well, I'm not very handy at all. I'm sure that gives you a good bit more, I don't know, confidence in rehabs, which I don't do rehabs or anything like that at all anymore anyway. But when you can tell a contractor, listen, you know what, I can do this myself, get out. I'm sure that gives you a good feeling to be able to do that.
It does. My husband doesn't appreciate it whenever I tell a contractor to pack sand, because then we're doing the work on the weekends or after, he's like, I thought we weren't going to do this anymore. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to overpay, or I'm not going to get screwed over, or we're not going to do halfway work. So we'll just do it ourselves. And so he's like, great. I was going to go to the baseball game this weekend, but now we are painting, or we are drilling this or building this. And so it's two-sided. It's not always the best thing to do. Sometimes I have to just learn how to have tough conversations in place of that now, just instead of being stuck doing the work myself. So it's not always a win on that one.
Yeah, but I can see the advantage, at least until you find your person, which eventually you find that person who you can count on, who does good work and who's going to hang around. So I'm sure that's. Well,
here's the deal. So after we flipped our first real house, the one that we bought on our own, and the one that was built in 1899, the biggest thing for me is that I guess just to say that you figure out what your gut want to do. Like, I didn't want to do these things any longer, right? Like, I wanted it to be a real business, and the property taking a really long time. But we did get into fix and flip for a while. We did make great money here in Dallas. We're not in that economy anymore. It is so valuable for me to be able to walk a property. I can literally walk a property and within 10 minutes have really close to an idea of the budget and what it's going to cost. I mean, I may be off $1,000 here or there, but I'm not usually wrong. And that has been so valuable to me, because if that number is wrong, your investment's wrong, right? And so that's the benefit and the leverage that I use it for now, is just being able to know. And then if I have my guys, they come in and they give me a bid, they usually ask, so where do you think it should be? And I'll tell them, and we're usually right on.
Oh, well, great. Well, I know you've done a lot of different things. I mean, you're just talking about, doing fix and flips and that sort of stuff. Well, tell us about your business model now. Do you have a specific thing that you like to do now as opposed to like a mix or a bunch of different things?
I only do sub two now. I have done fix and flip. We have some rentals. We've done lease option, which in Texas here is kind of a no-no anymore. I've wholesaled a property that I acquired that I just didn't like. It was beyond what my skill level was, and we wholesaled it to another investor. But I'm not doing that anymore. We're in a place right now in Dallas where the economy is just not. It doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't really open up a lot of space for that flexibility. So we're at the top of the market. So I only do sub two, and to me, that's the way that I pick up property. Mm-hmm. So if that property needs repair, if it needs to be held for a while as a rental, if it's ready for owner financing, for me, my strategy is that's my pickup strategy. And then I can really evaluate the property, see where it's at, look at where I want to be in my portfolio, and make the decision on how I'm going to exit that property.
Right. Well, you know me, I totally agree with the sub two only. It's all I've done for the last 10 years. When I got started, I was a lot like you. If a deal came along, I stuck it in a pigeonhole, and it was a flip, it was a rehab, all that stuff. But I'll tell you, all those moving parts really complicate your business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, ideally, I would like to get, and I have one house. It was a newer build, about a year old. So we were probably about $1,000 in repair, mostly just touch-ups and things like that. It was a large house. But I haven't found that to be the case thus far when I'm reviewing property. It's just most of the time, it's people have not had the money to do basic repairs on the property. And so while it's not a whole lot, it's still like maybe the HVAC system needs complete replacement. My last property I'm working on now had a pool. So the ticket item is big, but the workload isn't big. So, but yeah, I'm still looking to, ideally the goal would be to be able to get in and get out really quickly just with a deep clean from a cleaning company. But as of right now, I just haven't found any of those deals yet, but I'm still looking.
Oh yeah, they're definitely there. Mm-hmm. What would you say are your best sources for leads? Now, I generally like to ask investors that I talk to, if your life depended on generating quality leads within the next 24 hours, what would you do right now to make that happen?
Based on what I have been experiencing, for me, bandit signs, I've picked up property within 24 hours of a bandit sign going out. So that was really good for me. The other thing is word of mouth. I run a networking group. I am very honest about what I do. I tell people how I help people and working with lenders. And so I get distressed property or distressed situations more than not. But I actually have a digital marketing background. And one of the things that we've been playing around with is testing ads and being in front of those distressed people. I will say Facebook has recently changed a lot of their ad capability because, they were recently sued. And so a lot of the things that we were able to do last year, I haven't been able to do this year because of their new laws. So I can't necessarily target someone who needs credit repairers in a distressed situation like I could last year. So we're having to look for alternative ways, but that digital marketing, running Facebook ads, was my number one jam. So we're really relying on bandit signs and word of mouth right now while we still work through what that ad strategy can look like.
Did you really say bandit signs? I must hear a half dozen people a week say bandit signs don't work anymore.
I think they're crazy. So, the way that I got my first property was literally had your coaching program, and I opened up the book, and it said step 1, step 2, step 3, and I followed it. And step 1 was to get bandit signs, and so I ordered them where you told me to order them, as you told me to order them, and then my husband thinks I'm crazy, right? So here we are in this really nice neighborhood with HOA, and we're putting out on our Friday night date night now, putting out bandit signs. And the first weekend, the only calls I got was from the HOA, like, you can't have these signs, blah blah blah. And so I was like, okay, cool. So took them down on Sunday, and then the next Friday I learned what the HOA like area, what their territory was. And I just went right outside their territory. So across the street wasn't HOA anymore. So we stuck all the signs there. And that Saturday I got a call, and that's where I picked up my first property. So I just think it's about consistency. It's the color of the sign. It's saying the right thing. A confused mind says no. So be very clear about how you're articulating this, what you provide. And at the time, there was really not a lot of investors where I was at. Now, of course, there's like there's 5 bandit signs on the street. But I just think it's about positioning yourself in the right place. And it's a numbers game. So I have a property now in Dallas, and my bandit signs don't last 4 hours for another investor's picking them up, putting them in the back of their truck. So I just think it's about, where you're doing it. We've even looked at hiring, and we are about to, for another property right now, hiring those, those pizza guys where they do like the Papa John's pizza and they twirl it or whatever. So in the areas where we can't put bandit signs due to the law or because the investors are just that competitive, I'm just going to hire somebody like on Friday afternoon traffic to stand there and be a mobile bandit sign, because they can't pick that person up and take them,
Absolutely.
I love bandit signs. They're very low cost of entry. I didn't have a whole lot of money to test sub 2 because we were working on several properties at the time, and I had my money in those properties. And so that's one of the things I loved about bandit signs. Like, I just ordered 100 just to test them, and I picked up a new build. So I'm sure it's not always that easy, but it did work. I followed the process and it worked, and I got a property.
Right. When I first got started, what I used to do, because when you first get started, a lot of times cost is a concern. And what I got into the habit of doing was saying, okay, if bandit signs cost me $2 a piece, and of course they're generally cheaper than that, if you can get people to put them out for $1 a piece, but if they cost me $2 a piece and I get one deal off of the $200 that I spent for 100 bandit signs, and I potentially make $50,000 off this deal over down payment, monthly payments, and a back end profit, how many bandit signs will that buy me? And one deal will pay for your bandit sign budget for like the rest of your life.
Yeah, your cost per acquisition is very low. I mean, it's very, very low, and it's easy. And here's the thing, guys, like I just said, I don't know if you caught on to this, but like we put out our own bandit signs because we just didn't have the budget for it. And I wasn't willing to spend the money on testing at the time because we were just really snug on our marketing budget. However, we just got out there and did it. Like I drive an SUV, my husband drove, and I took the back and opened it, and we would just stick them. And for us, we couldn't have them in our town Monday through Friday. So we went back on Sunday night and picked them back up. So it just like, what do you want out of your business and what are you looking for? I would just say winging it doesn't work. But if you have a plan and you're willing to test it and to do the process over and again, it will show you that it works, and you don't have to spend a whole lot of money on bandit signs. That's why I like it.
That's right. Do you have any favorite tools that help you in the business you could share with our listeners?
So my 2 things that I use, I feel like I used all the things. So there's probably no better person to ask than this, because I am a data person, having that digital marketing background. I've tested everything. And the 2 things that have worked the best for me is the Sub 2 book. I actually bought your book. That was the first thing I did. And I read it in one day, cover to cover. And it's funny because my husband actually calls it my purse, because I carry it around everywhere I go. And even now I still carry it everywhere. I put files in it, and it's kind of like, for me, it's my Sub 2 Bible, if you would, because everything that I need to know, it's in there. The things that I've learned in addition to that, I add in there. And so I just always like to be prepared and have the knowledge at my fingertips. And so that is what that book has done for me. Also, sometimes I'm in situations where I'm like questioning myself, like, wait a second, is that right? I don't know. And I have a trusted place to go back to. So for me, that's my number 1 tool. It's the place that I find confidence in my notes are in there. I have all my contracts in there, all my information on my team, my vendors, everything is in that book. So my other thing is networking is a big thing for me. One, just network with general people who do not do what I do so that they are out always listening for someone in a distressed situation they know to send them to me. But really networking with other sub-2 investors has been a huge tool for me. I think it's just like, where are you at in your business? And where I was at in my business is I work from home, and being in a place, in an environment where I can be all in with people who are doing the same thing as me, who have the same kinds of questions, struggles, concerns, situations. That has just been the biggest tool for me, because it's a place that I can attract confidence for myself and also give it back to those that are new. It's kind of like my pay it forward. There's so many people in this investment space that are just like, this is illegal, you can't do this, I've never heard of this is a scam. That is the most insane thing to me, because they just lack education. So being able to dive back into that sub-2 group that we have and kind of just wash all that negativity off and remind my subconscious that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I've done the work, I've educated myself, and I have a group of other people that agree. As far as like, technology type stuff, and I haven't found anything that's been like super warm and fuzzies for me. I've tried a lot of different things. I currently have a Podio system, and we are looking at working into our CRM system, which is Follow Up Boss, a little bit more. And that's pretty much it. Like, I tried all the fancy tools. I know a lot of people use PropStream. I haven't had a lot of success for myself in Texas, which is a bummer because everyone loves it. But my data in my county just hasn't been as accurate as I need it to be. So those are kind of the two things that I lean upon the most, is my sub-2 book and then my investor group.
Right. On the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook, I remember when you've actually sent me pictures of that. You have really blinged that thing up, and I know you put tabs on it and all kinds of things. So, I mean, it's really evolved. It
has.
Need to get you to form another company and do fulfillment for me and actually produce that thing now.
Really? So here's the deal too. So being in Texas, like what you teach is contract for deed. And we have to do we do here, is a wrap here in Texas. So that exit strategy is different than what a lot of the things that you mentioned. And so I had a whole nother set of a whole nother way of learning things on how to exit a property if I wanted to own or finance it. And so all of that's in there. So for me, this book is really my start to finish. I even have my transaction process, all the documents my attorney requires. I have even gone as far as we have a checklist for our owner finance people on the exit. Like, what do you need to apply? What is happening with this property? Like, can you refinance, like a FAQ if you would, and we put it in the house multiple places. All that is in my book. Like, this is my business, and I put it in this book, and I'm working on making it more digital in case whatever, it ever gets stolen, I'll lose my mind. But for right now, it's really just everything. Every time I learn something new, I put it in there.
Yeah.
I always can reference back to that.
So Jessica actually has the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook 2.0.
I have the Texas version.
That's right. Yeah, the Texas version.
I know. It's really funny because I came to an event that you were at, and I probably sold more of those things than you were anticipating. You just brought them to be kind. And I was at the table like, you have to have this, you have to have this. And people were like, really? I was like, you cannot go do sub-2 and not like do your homework, learn from an expert. If you want to get the basis, like just the nuts and bolts of sub-2, you got to get on this podcast, and you got to get the book, because you cannot, in my opinion, this is my opinion, you cannot tell someone, I'm going to take over your mortgage, I'm going to be responsible, and you haven't done the things to be responsible to learn how to handle that. Right. So that's my opinion, but yeah, I don't go anywhere without it. It's my purse.
Wow, that's I tell you, that's the best testimonial right there. And I wanted to ask you too. You've mentioned a couple of times so far about networking, and I know that you have your own networking group there in Dallas. You want to tell everybody about it? So I know we have a whole bunch of Texas investors in our forum. And how about sharing some information on your networking group, how it works, and how they can get in touch with you or join?
Yeah, absolutely. So this networking group, it's called Master Networks Dallas Uptown. We do meet in Uptown. We meet every Tuesday during the day, 9:30 a.m. to 10:30. You can get more information. We're on Facebook, or you can just message me too. But our Facebook group has all the info. And this group, it's not industry specific, so it's not just investors. And that was my intention, because I wanted to have kind of like a sales force, if you would, of people that are out. So I have trades in there. I have other commercial type investors. I have a hard money lender, realtors. I mean, literally health and wellness people. And what I love about it is they actually bring me a lot more business than if I had just done an investment, because I'm not competing with them. I'm their only person. They don't know anyone else that does this. So that group is incredible. We just reached over 40. I started it in July. And we meet every Tuesday for 1 hour, and 40 people show up every week because the value that we're adding is incredible. And here's the thing. When I get a property, all of my trusted team, except for maybe one or two that aren't in that group, they're all in that group. So when I get a house, my roofer is in there, my insurance guy is in there. If, I don't do hard money, but if somebody else needs it, it's just everyone that I need, it's right there in one group. And that was the best thing for me to build a team, because I struggled with finding the right partners.
Right.
So it's really incredible. And from there, we have 4 agents in that group. They all specialize in different things, but you know what those agents do, right? They send me deals that they can't do. So instead of me trying to go out and educate all of these investors in Dallas, or these agents in Dallas who think what I do is illegal, I just educate the 4 in my group that I deal with every Tuesday, and they just call me. Hey, I'm at a property. I can't do this deal. They don't have enough equity to sell. I know you can help them. Can you come over? And so I've really built a very healthy, strong tribe of people. And also we're starting to see people that are interested in financially investing as well out of this group. So the vision is actually what I envisioned it to be. It's what it is now. It's in fruition, but I couldn't encourage anyone more than to get out and network. Don't look at the ROI, because that's not why I did it. I did it to build a tribe of people. The money will come. Yeah. So, I love that group. And out of that group, for all of my Dallas investors, we are we want to do a sub 2 networking group only for Dallas, only for our sub 2 people. So if you're interested, that would be awesome. We've talked to a few people. I think the hardest part is just finding a date that we can all do that. But we'd love to have you if we do that, Tingle. That would be awesome.
Well, I'd love to come to Dallas. So you just let me know.
I just think that in person, getting off of the Facebook group and bringing deals, having my trusted partners is the biggest thing that I want to provide. Is when you're starting out, oh my gosh, you and I lost a deal, and you were on the phone with me as I was losing my cool because I went to the wrong title company. They said they could do the deal, they didn't do the deal, and it really it blew up in my face. And I knew that day, I wasn't willing to take on any more property until I figured out this team. And so I know the value of that, and I would love to give it to other people that are in Dallas that need the right attorney, need to do the proper insurance on these wraps, because it's very different than, on a contract for deed. So that's the intention of that. So we are really thinking about that, and we'd really love to do that and offer that to my other sub-tours locally.
So you said this networking group is on Facebook. How can someone get in touch with you, or what would be the easiest way if they were interested in joining your networking group?
Yeah, so just looking it up, all the information comes directly to me, Master Networks, Dallas Uptown. So we have a business Facebook group. It has information about where we meet, the address, so you can Google it and come up there. And if you're going to come, just send a message and I'll know. I'll be at the front door and I can introduce you to all the people, and we'd love to have you.
And we'll also put that contact information in the show notes for everybody, so they'll be able to just click on it and go to the group and contact you. So we'll have that in there too.
That'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, guys, great information so far. Jessica and I are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, she will share with us her criteria for evaluating a sub-2 deal and deciding if she wants to pass or play. So you guys stick with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
The Sub-2 Deals Show with your host, Sub-2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Have you ever had a seller give you a house? It's a pretty awesome experience. If a seller wanted to give you a house today, would you know what needed to be done to make the deal happen? Would you like to learn how? The Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook will show you exactly what you need to get those deeds and sell those houses with seller financing. Join the thousands of other investors across the country who learned how to get the deed with the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook. Get the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook today at sub2deals.com. Back to the show, the Sub-2 Deals Show with your host, Sub-2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub-2ers, we're back. I am here with Jessica Juderman Van Brunt. She is sharing with us how she runs her Sub-2 business. And when we left off, she was just about to tell us how she decides if she wants to take on a deal that's been presented to us. She'll share with us whether the numbers that she uses and how she decides if it's something that's going to be profitable for her. So Jessica, tell us, if you will, what are the numbers that you look at? What are your criteria when you evaluate a Sub-2 deal and decide if it's a real deal or if it's a dud?
Yeah, so one of the things that coming out of the fix and flip space, I was always looking for, the most amount of equity. So that was kind of the biggest learning curve for me when I did the Sub-2 guidebook, was learning that I don't really need a lot of equity to take up these properties and also to help people. So my equity spread that I look for, it can be anywhere from 8% to 15%, and I'm comfortable. So that allows me to pick up a lot of the new builds that are happening here in the Dallas area, because maybe they just built in the last year or two. They don't really have any equity. I get a new build, a new property that's easy to move. My ideal equity spread right now would really be, 15% is my sweet spot. But, there's variables on every deal where you can still make it work. My minimum cash flow has really increased. It used to be 300 because I was like, woohoo, that's a great deal. And then I realized that I was leaving money on the table. So right now, my minimum cash flow is $400 and my goal is 500. And I've actually been I haven't done any deals under 500 at this point. So
good for you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that just came honestly from, again, my confidence level. When you start anything, you just want to move the property, hurry up. But really knowing your numbers, getting more comfortable with your spreadsheets and all of that thing to run your numbers is really important. The condition of the property, like for me, if I could pick, that house, if there was 10, I could say yes, like a newer build would be incredible because, well, there's so many here in Dallas, but also they don't really need any work. They just need a really good company to come in and detail clean the property, make it look fresh, smell good. And so that would be ideal situation. With that, though, I have picked up other properties in areas that needed a little bit more work, but it was a heavy owner finance rental market. So it allowed me to have like a good strategy as far as I may have to put a little bit up front, but my down payment covered that repair. And so that's what I'm looking for on the repairs is, yes, ideally, I would love to get of the 10% down. I'd love to cash flow all of that. However, when I'm evaluating a deal, if it's going to yield like $500 to $550 a month, and I only get 50% back in my pocket for that repair, like maybe it needed $10,000 in repair and I got $20,000 down. To me, that is still good that's still good numbers that I'm really comfortable with. And this year, what I've been doing is I've had a lot of people that have been interested in investing with me. I know you and I have talked a lot about that. And so we're putting together a packet for investors that want to actually be part of that repair up front. And then I can wrap them into the loan because my cash flow spread is so big. I can still pay them out in a loan, pay them back, keep more money up front, and still have the same cash flow that I want. And so I've had a lot of investors that are really interested in that because it's really hard to find rental properties right now with a 1% rule. It's just almost impossible to do.
Right.
And most of the time, these investors don't want to deal with toilets and tenants.
Mm-hmm.
So they're happy to have the cash flow and not have to do the deal. But so minimum cash flow, at least 400, 8 to 15% in equity is my minimum. And then under 10,000 in repair is really, those are like my perfect numbers for me.
I agree. You know, I'm so thankful that very early in my investing, I learned that cash flow is really what sets you free.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
yeah, definitely.
We love to get money up front. We love to go in with nothing down. But the cash flow numbers, I mean, when you start looking at things and let's just say you're a new investor, you're getting started, you're at a job where you make, $50,000 a year. How many houses do you need at $500 a month to not need your job? Not very,
So good.
Yep. And
that was the, that was the thing for me too, was, when I first started getting on your podcast and learning about all these things, one of the things that took me like 3 or 4 times, I'm not slow either, by the way, but it took me 3 or 4 times for my brain to really comprehend the house a month, 12 properties a year. I just had to listen to that. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, it changes your mindset. I think to me, that's one of my favorites because I could listen to it over and again and be like, okay, I only need 1 property a month. That's it. Like, and in the wholesale space, fix and flip, rental, that's not the case. You 1 house a month is not going to set you free. So I just had to like keep resetting my whole mindset and my whole thought process. And that podcast was one of my favorites. So anytime I get nervous or like unsure of myself, am I doing the right thing? I always go back to that podcast and like, yep, I just need 1 house this month. That's it. That's all I have to do is just 1 house.
Well, and that's, the reason I did that. And I, honestly, I agree. I think it's one of the most powerful ones we've got. And it's very short. It was just one that I did. I don't think it's maybe 10 minutes long. But new investors coming in think they have to work so hard and it's going to be so difficult to get started. And so my question to them was always, it's 1 house a month. Who can't do it? I mean, you get in there, you get started. Of course, when you're first getting started up, you've got to put some things in place. That takes a little more time. But once you've got a team and a system in place, anyone can buy 1 house a month.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think the thing about that podcast for me is that you're so matter of fact, you are just really honest. And that to me resonated with me. It was kind of like I said, for me, I don't know how many people confess to this, but this can be scary up front. It's a lot of change. It's exactly the opposite of what you've learned your entire life about buying property. And the whole world literally is telling you can't do it. So again, I think just plugging into that and reminding yourself that this is an excellent way. Like, this is an excellent way to buy property. And the bank isn't the only one that should be winning in the money game, in the financial space. Like, there's no reason we can't do it as well. And the people that you help, I mean, 2 of my properties I bought from people that had a VA loan. Both were still actively using their military clearance. They were going to lose their military clearance if they went into foreclosure. So that's what they shared with me. I don't know how that works or whatever, but that was their biggest fear. And so to be part of that, like that solution for them and give them that peace of mind, whether that was going to happen or not, I don't know. But that was their pain point, is they needed their military clearance to do that job. And so I just love being part of that journey with them and that story, and getting emails from them all the time about, thank you, I just woke up this morning stress-free and just wanted to thank you from a deal that I did last year.
Right.
It's just really cool to be part of. So I wanted to share with you too, the aspects of one of the strategies that we're using, and we've kind of full circled. I think I've shared this with you before. So last year, my husband became a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Texas, we can't see, the whole point of this was really just to move my own property at a discount, but I didn't have access to the MLS to see numbers because we're a non-disclosure state. Mm-hmm. And I know PropStream has worked for some people, but for whatever reason in the county that I was in, it just wasn't populating. So
PropStream is great, but it has been hit or miss in different areas. Where it's good, it's very good, and where it's not, I've heard that they're working on that and they're trying to improve it. But yeah, I understand what you're saying about that.
Yeah, and that would be excellent. I mean, I was pretty bummed because I was so excited about having that one tool. So he became an agent, and that has been another huge piece. I know a lot of people in our group talk about it. Is, should I become an agent, or my spouse become an agent? And I will tell you, for me, it's been very beneficial having access to comps, being able to see real numbers. I'm not having to kind of badger my real estate partner, like, oh, I'll give you a deal when it comes, kind of thing. But also, we are getting, when he gets a buyer, because now he is doing more on the retail side, but like last week, he got 2 first-time home buyers that didn't qualify, but they're ready to be homeowners. So he went and showed him my owner finance property. And so we're really just trying, as we build, we're building everything to stay cohesive in our real estate brand as much as possible. And so that's been a huge piece for us too. So just really enhancing his marketing on the buyer side feeds my owner finance side. And then when he runs into a property that someone asks him to sell, and he can't because we're calling on for sale by owners, right? And then he knows how to have that at least startup conversation of, why are you selling this house for sale by owner? Is it just you don't want to give up the 6%, or you can't? And can I talk to you about another option if you're interested? And so we're just starting to have those conversations, and it has been a whole nother way of us to tap into the market for sub-2 deals.
I think that's a great strategy. When you can get your spouse to get the license, it also separates you from all of that disclosure stuff. If you're operating on the investment side,
right?
Your spouse has the license, so you can kind of separate things up. I think it's a lot different than the actual investor having the license, where that really controls and impacts a lot of what you can do. But that's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah, and the conversation for like on the pickup on the buyer when we're exiting the property, it's very different. The level of confidence that they have, or even when we're calling from the real estate business, calling a for sale by owner, explaining this opportunity for subject to, it's a whole nother level of a conversation because of that realtor trust and authority that they carry. It has just really opened up more and more conversations for us that we're not very successful with on the investment side. When we were doing some calling of our own, people were like, no, I don't want to work with investors, just because they understood with investors that we're just going to have to take all their equity. And I played that game with fix and flip, and so I understand their reservations. So trying to overcome that conversation when their mind was made up and 15 other investors have already called them, right? Like, it was really hard to get to that point. When we call from the real estate side to say, hey, we're a real estate company, how can we help you? And laying out some different creative variables for them, we are expanding their options in a place where they have the mindset to be open-minded and willing to listen. We were really not having that success on the investment side.
Right. Okay. Well, can you give us an example of a deal that you're working on right now?
Yeah, sure. So I picked up one over the holidays that we have been under contract with. We should be closing this one pretty soon. And it was a VA loan. It was a divorce. It came from a friend, someone on Facebook that I honestly haven't talked to in over 10 years. She, her friend was having all these wholesalers come. They just needed to part ways, and all these investors or wholesalers were asking, like $90,000 for the property. That was their offer, and they owe $149,000. So they were in a state of panic. Like, what are they going to do? And so this friend reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I know that you do creative stuff. I don't know what that means, but can you help my friend?" And so I went over later that day, and we literally made the deal on the couch, because she had tapped all of her options. Every wholesaler, small and large, I saw all the offers. They had been there. Some didn't even come. They made an offer over the internet, and she just didn't have any options, and she needed her security clearance, and that's what she was nervous about again on this one. The spouse had already left her with a lot of repair on the property and just an overwhelming situation. So I just sat down and explained to her, like, if this is something, I'm not telling you that I can, but if this is something that I could do for you, would you be open to this conversation? And it was an immediate yes. I really understood where she needed to be financially. It was not a healthy divorce by any means. He purposely put a hole in every door and every wall, which was the bulk of the repair, just to leave an ugly situation. So that's where a lot of my repair came from. And also it had a pool that they didn't have the financial ability to continue to care for. So we ended up just taking that pool out and replacing it. So that was the bulk of the work that we had to do there, little stuff on the inside, and then a big financial with that removing of the pool. So the strategy for this is to hold the property and exit it with owner financing. We're going to ask, it's on the market, we're asking 10% down, and we're going to be at 195 as our ask. And so we have an interest rate on this loan of 4%, 4.125, and we are going to do an interest rate of 9.9. So we'll be cash flowing roughly $615. And we still have a lot of flexibility. If someone has more money down and wants to do a lower interest rate, we still have plenty of room to work with that owner finance to do that. Now, the kind of the heartburn on this property for me is that it's been under contract once, and then they got, I guess, cold feet or whatever the case may be, and so they backed out. So the property went back on the market right at Christmas week. So I've held this property. It went under contract within 4 days of us listing it, and then Christmas. And so, but we have several people that we're working with right now. They're waiting on their tax return check. So everything is ready as far as paperwork. We are just waiting on that down payment.
Well, now, Jessica, tell me that with regard to this contract that fell through, that you got a nice deposit when they signed the contract. So you got to keep that to offset your costs to make the payments, right?
I did, and that's something that I learned from you, because I don't know what is the deal, but I've had multiple properties, not even in the owner finance space. Well, even one of my rentals that we're still have, people are just nervous about making decisions or commitments and not really sure what the case may be. Or maybe they, especially for these owner finances, I think maybe they weren't expecting for someone to say yes. So they went through the process and were like, yep, you're approved. We use an RMLO to approve all of our properties and our buyers, and everyone that we have said yes to is like more than approved. We're not just skimming the top here. And so, yeah, I learned that from you, is take a big commitment. And like I told you earlier, we have that FAQ sheet and we have it listed around the house. It literally says, this is the non-refundable deposit. It is not returned for any reasons. Do not move forward with this property if you're not serious. And obviously that's because I've been through this multiple times. Right. So it is currently paying my holding costs.
I remember especially painful situation when I told you, girl, you better start getting some money down from these people. Yep. To cover payments when they back out on you. You tie that property up for a month and then they disappear. You can fix this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 times I've had people back out, not on this property, one on this and one on the other one, since we implemented that strategy from you. And here's the thing, they have serious heartburn about it. They want their money back. They put all this money in. I'm like, I've now added it into my contract. They have to sign it now to say, yes, I understand this money is never coming back to me unless I close on the property. Now, here's the thing. If they don't get approved with the RMLO, they do get that money back. And we clearly articulate that. So the only reason they don't get that money back is if they don't show up to closing, which has happened to me 2 times. I don't know what's happening. But anyways, then they call a month later wanting their money. And the answer is, no, not. It was posted in multiple places. Like, I'm just like CYA all over the place. But, and like, seriously, it's not like I'm just saying yes. Some of these people I've met with 4 or 5 times, the whole family sat down with them. My husband's the agent. He comes in and does all the paperwork. Then they meet with the attorney. Then they meet with the RMLO. Like, this is not me just taking advantage of people. I want to be really clear about that. This is a full, we added more steps that are needed to ensure, and then they hand that check to my RMLO, who hands it to the attorney. So like, I'm not even involved in that process at all. But yeah, and they still get cold feet. And that was one of the things that I'm scared of the most, is holding these properties for a while. However, now I don't have that fear because they're going under contract quickly. If they back out, then I have that to create that holding cost.
And that makes those payments in the meantime while you're getting your next buyer in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That deal you just shared with us, I remember a conversation with you about that pool. You said, this house has a pool that's in bad shape. What would you do? And I said, I would call a bulldozer.
Yep. I did. I did. Yeah. And it was interesting. Like, it was kind of a harder thing to do because I guess every investor in Dallas is starting to do that. Like, we're just all ripping them out. And what's really interesting is how many people are like booked for months because they are working with investors that are ripping out pools. And I'm like, I just thought this was the Tingle thing. Now I know nobody wants to deal with the maintenance. It's a smaller, and that's the thing too, is on the evaluation process, it really limited the buyer as well. We wanted to open that buyer pool as wide as possible. And having a pool is extra maintenance and expense that some people just legitimately can't afford. And I didn't. So yeah, that was the bulk of my.
Well, not only that, but if they've got small children, that's a consideration. The liability, when you're either selling, which you don't do in Texas, on a lease option or renting a house. I mean, there's so many factors with a pool. And I just found a long time ago it's best to just eliminate those potential problems and just get rid of it.
It was a new thing for me. I mean, all the properties I've done on fix and flip, I've never had a pool. So, I had to learn through it. But it's a thing here. And every investor here in Dallas is undoubtedly ripping out pools. So we were a little bit on a wait for that as well. It was really good advice. And I'm very thankful that we moved forward and just took it out. It's a better option.
I'm loving that $600 cash flow. That's pretty nice.
Yes. And with every deal, I've learned a little bit something different. And, what I've done before in the past is if we needed to do quite a bit of repair, instead of taking that money out of my pocket, we've had an investor come in and front that, and then I give them their money back. Basically kind of like a hard money type situation where I'll hold it at a higher interest rate, and then when I get the down payment, then I pay them back. And moving forward this year, we will not, like I said, we will not be doing that. We will actually keep the down payment for ourselves in our business account, and then we will pay out the investor in monthly payments as a loan, because with this kind of cash flow, I can still offer them great cash flow, and they're not investing much, $10,000 to $20,000. And then because I am building my own nest egg back up instead of just giving them all their money back. And that's what most of these investors are really wanting. When I sat down and asked, what do you want if I was to bring a property to you? They want cash flow too. So that was something that I have really learned about this year. My attorney is the one that suggested that I do that because that's their strategy as well. And that's how they're growing quicker and quicker, is by wrapping their investors into the loan. So I haven't done it yet, but that is where we're moving to.
Well, Jessica, you certainly got a lot of experience doing a lot of things in a short period of time in real estate investing. You've really shared a lot of information with us. I'm so thankful you're on here today. One last question. If you could give new investors wanting to get started today any advice, what would it be?
I work with a lot of new investors. I'm like a magnet for them. So this is real life, what I tell them. A few bullet points. Do not go to the bank and ask for money. Be your own bank. And then if they don't believe me, I tell them to do the math. How long is it going to take you to get that 20% down back in your cash flow and back as your investment? And how could you leverage that if you didn't give it to the bank? The other thing is, and this might be very specific to Dallas, but everyone here wants to be a fix and flipper. I think it's just a lot to do with the buzzwords and so many people coming to Dallas, selling these big programs and also TV. But it specifically in my market, I would say don't, as the first time, do not do a fix and flip. I know it looks like an amazing place to make money. It's a very attractive process, but I can tell you someone who has done it and made $100,000 on a property, you're not making that anymore. Like if everything goes perfectly, which it never does, people, like $10,000, $15,000, that's just too high risk. And so I would just steer clear of the fix and flip space. We will be in a market where that is open up again, but I just don't. And I see a few investors that don't listen to me and they've lost money or they've just barely broken even, but it's taken them all their time and all their stress when they could have just picked up a property and been their own bank. And the other bullet point that I always tell people is get into a networking group. I've already talked about it on the earlier on this call. And the thing for me is build your team. I briefly shared that I lost a deal because the title company just didn't know what I was asking of them. It was a very painful situation. Building your team is everything. And so, who is your title person? Who is your insurance person? In Dallas, I get this question a lot in our group. I use Scott Horn. He's an attorney here in Dallas that does wraps. He also does owner finance and sub-2 himself. And they have their own RMLO that you can use there. So that was a huge place for me in Texas to go to. And he teaches classes. He does weekend educations. You can learn a lot from him. Have a mentor. It was a blessing to have you, Tingle, when I first jumped in. I think I stalked you on Facebook a little bit, please, will you be my friend? Please, please. And so I'm just thankful that you said yes, because having a mentor, having that compass is everything. Just like I said earlier, just don't listen to those uneducated people. Know your information, study, because when those people are telling you can't do it, in your body, you can, because you've done the work, you've done the research, you have a process in place. And then just stay focused on the people that are doing deals and making money. That's why I love our Sub-2 Deals group, is because these are people that are in there, they're doing money, they're asking questions. And then, there's a handful of you guys that are way more experienced than we can be right now at this level. And you guys give us feedback. And so that's really, really important. Do not try to do this on your own and go rogue. It's not going to work. And I just say, really, honestly, go for it. Be your own bank. I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. I would have a very different life right now.
Well, that's great advice, Jessica. And I'll tell you, you have been just an absolute joy to know and to just watch you evolve in your real estate investing. There's a reason that I call you a rock star. It's you just get out there and do stuff and you ask questions, but you don't, well, that's not going to work. You don't just let that negative thinking keep you from doing what needs to be done. And that's really the difference. You don't let other people who say it's illegal or you can't do it. You ask a lot of questions, and that's one reason that you're so successful. And I'm just really proud of you. I just want you to know that. Yeah,
well, thank you. And I'm personally, I know I told you this before we recorded, but I'm honored to be even asked to be on your podcast, because just really 6-7 months ago, I was the one that was glued to this podcast, learning everything that I could. And it really, to me, it's validation of how far I've come. But also, I remember listening to all these other people that you were interviewing, and I was like, they're so amazing. I just want to be like them one day. And, you know, I'm not where they are, but the point is I'm moving the ball every day a little closer, and I'm doing the work that's required. And so it's a true honor to have you as my mentor. I know you didn't say yes. I just picked you and told you you were going to be. And, you know, just allowing me to be part of the group and part of, you know, your life, and being able to reach out to you when I have those scary things happen. And so I just really pinched me. I cannot believe I'm on this podcast. I really appreciate you just seeing that in me. And it's not even been a year. And so I'm just really excited about what this journey is going to continue to be for myself, my husband, and the people that we're helping get out of these bad situations.
Yeah. Well, you know, I told you in the very beginning you were going to be very successful, and of course, you know, I'm generally right. So another case where I am correct. So it's great to have you here today, and I thank you so much for being on with us. Well, Sub-Tours, that is it for this episode of the Sub-2 Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe. Please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, and it helps others discover the show. You can subscribe as well as leave a rating and review by visiting Apple Podcasts and just do a quick search for the Sub-2 Deals Show. It'd also be great if you would consider sharing our podcast with a fellow real estate investor who you think may benefit from it. And finally, if you haven't yet, you can join our absolutely free Facebook Subject To group at sub2forum.com. You can also get lots more resources to help you grow your real estate investing business at sub2deals.com. So until our next show, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub-2 Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com, on Facebook at Sub2 Deals. We'll catch you next time.